Hello, welcome to Eternal Beta, the weekly marketing and technology show. I'm Scott Rowe.
And I'm Nathan Anderson.
Thanks for joining us again this week. We have three topics that we're going to talk about. Pretty interesting stuff, as usual, like to think.
Probably.
Probably. According to us, it is. Yeah. The first thing is actually about mobile commerce. And it's really, really interesting in that commerce, overall online commerce, has obviously grown pretty dramatically. It's still a pretty small fraction of total commerce overall, but it has grown quite a bit. So as of March of this year, 4.6 of all commerce, that's all commerce, brick and mortar, online, everything, occurred through mobile devices. So that would include things like iPhones, Blackberries, Android devices, iPads, and all of that. But what's even more interesting is 89% of all mobile purchases have occurred through an iPad, which actually means 4% of total sales, retail sales, have actually been conducted through an iPad. Now, Nathan and I have kind of had a little bit of a debate as to
why.
Why? Well, why? I mean, it's a good interface, and it's much more easy and casual. Now, we've kind of had a debate as to whether or not an iPad is really a mobile device or not,
true, yeah.
But that's not really. The industry pundits basically make that decision and not us. I mean, I kind of think of an iPad, I think it's really not any real different than taking around a laptop.
Yeah. I mean, you don't see an iPad fitting right here.
No,
I mean, that's
a side holster.
Yeah, that's mobile. And an iPad has a screen that's as big as some of our laptops. I think it's like as Jobs said, it's the device that sits between the phone and the PC, but it's not mobile. I don't ever use my iPad when I'm standing up or on the go. That is my phone. Sure. And so it's but different device, different place.
But that's the industry standard says that it is a mobile device. But I think it's just, it's really, it kind of blows my mind. I mean, the iPad has not been around that long, all things considered,
We're on it 2.5 years now. Yeah,
so in 2.5 years it has taken over 4% of all retail commerce.
All commerce.
Which is, I don't know, it's just mind-boggling to me. So that was a pretty cool statistic. Maybe we'll put a link in the YouTube video to that article so you can kind of look a little more and learn more about the methodology behind the research and everything. Another topic is about streaming video content. I'm a big fan of streaming content. I have a Netflix subscription. Watch a lot of streaming content online, especially like added commentary and additional footage and things like that. Love to watch all that stuff. It's great. But it was pretty crazy in that things have changed quite a bit. Like in the last year, streaming content has actually increased like 545% in total revenue to like $548 million in revenue over the years, which is pretty substantial. I mean, that's a lot of dough, and there's really not that many players in the game. So you have Netflix and Hulu and a few others. And
there's a lot of small players popping up. I mean, there's Crackle. And,
yeah, I like Crackle.
Well, and everybody's trying to get into the streaming game. We have HBO Go and the actual content creators and distributors wanting a slice, in addition to networks and cable providers. So everybody wants a piece of streaming, and Netflix is sitting on the top of the throne right now.
Yes, they are. We'll see how long that lasts. There's a lot of other things coming, like Crackle. I like Crackle, but it's ad supported, so you don't have to pay for a subscription fee, but you do get advertising in the programming. But what's really interesting is that I think we all kind of know, the traditional method for renting movies through physical form has decreased pretty darn dramatically. I mean, Blockbuster's all but gone, except for a few of their kiosks for the most part.
And they're not even operated by Blockbuster anymore. After bankruptcy, another firm took on the kiosks. It's name only that Blockbuster lives on.
I thought it was interesting. There's one actually near my house, but it says returns only. So you can't actually rent anything from it. You can just return the videos. So that apparently is going away. But Redbox is the only real outlier on that, and they had increased total like 30.1%. They've grown over the past year, which is pretty stellar. Now, but you think about the price of those, and you're talking $1.29 with taxes for one-day rental. I go to try to rent something through Apple, through the iTunes store, through my Apple TV, and it's $4 or $5.
You're paying for the convenience though there. I mean, I can stay at home and I can watch a new release, or I can drag my ass out of bed and go to the Redbox in front of my grocery store.
I don't want to return it. I got to go back. So yeah, there is a definite convenience factor there. I have to agree with you.
I think that's on the Redbox subject. People get hooked on that dollar price point, but I wonder if there's any data on like what the average cost of a true rental actually is. Because everybody I talk to, they almost never remember to take it back the next day, and so you end up paying like $3-4 for a rental anyway. Yeah. It's like the low cost of entry gets you in, but our laziness is what gets them the extra money. I think.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure the same thing happened with Blockbuster back in the day. I mean, those are some pretty hefty, late fees.
Late fees, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's kind of funny. I bet you there is some stats out there. There are some stats out there. What is kind of interesting though is like we have all these paid models, right? We have Netflix and all of these. We have video on demand, Hulu Plus, and all of that. But then we also have a lot of providers, especially cable providers, that have offered some level of free streaming online. Turner does, Turner Networks do, Fox Network, a lot of things like that. ESPN. And what's interesting is they're starting to kind of realize that there's not as much revenue in there from an advertising perspective, but they want to still support standardized cable subscribers because people aren't cable subscribers. They're not getting the revenue in order to be able to support the online services because there's not enough advertising there alone to support it. So what a lot of them are starting to do is require you now to register to prove that you are a cable subscriber. So you have a Cox subscription or a Comcast subscription to be able to watch it. Not that dissimilar to what HBO's done with HBO Go.
HBO is a very notable example.
It's the same thing. But it's interesting to kind of see these other networks say, oh, well, we better make sure these people are true subscribers. So it's different. I think short term they'll probably see a decrease in overall viewership on those because it's another, it's not a monetary cost of entry necessarily. No.
Well, and
for
it's
people
also,
that are cable subscribers, but
it's a complicated problem to solve because like HBO Go, not all cable networks or providers are supported. Yeah. And so there's some people who are HBO Go or HBO subscribers through the cable provider that can't use the app yet because there's no hook into that cable provider's authentication service. So it's frustrating. I mean, from the consumer's perspective, it's silly.
Because it shouldn't matter.
No.
I mean, I'm paying for the subscription. I should get it no matter who my cable provider is. But the technology behind it's always the problem. Exactly. That authentication across all these different companies to store data in different ways with different types of APIs and licensing agreements for integration. But I thought it was really interesting to see how much it is going to change and how ultimately a lot of that free streaming programming is going to require a little more from us in order to be able to get it moving forward.
Here we thought it'd be easier and cheaper to cut your cable. Now you're just going to have to sign up just so you can watch stuff online and not use it.
Darn.
Oh well.
I'm hoping to cut the cable one of these days, but I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah. Well, and speaking of cutting cables or ties, that leads us to our next article. Apple's annual developer conference, WWDC, or is it R? Whatever. At any rate, we're a month away from hearing about the next version of iOS from Apple. And we're starting to hear that one of the big changes is that Google is going to be kicked out of the Maps app, and Apple is going to be bringing this technology totally in-house with a recent acquisition they made. It's interesting to see Apple start to distance itself from Google. They've had a bit of a weird relationship in the mobile space with Android coming out and being a direct competitor. But from the get-go, iPhone's success has largely been based on leveraging a lot of Google services. I mean, Maps was, you look at the first iPhone.
Google Search.
Yeah, we had Google Search, we had Google Maps, and integration with Gmail, and now here in the current version, you can set Bing as your default search provider. So I think we're going to see sooner rather than later, Apple will just want to sever ties totally with Google.
Sure. Well, I'm sure they're spending an enormous amount of money paying Google for the use of that service. So, I mean, the acquisitions make sense. Another really interesting thing they're talking about is through the C3 service. They're offering some level of interesting 3D mapping, which is something Google doesn't provide. And I've seen some of the demos on YouTube. We'll put a couple of links to that to those in this video description. But it's pretty cool to see. I mean, literal 3D tours of entire cities.
I wonder how well it works all around the world, though.
Yeah.
I mean,
New York and San Francisco.
And the Hoover Dam one was pretty cool. But I mean, it's like, are we going to be able to see Omaha and
maybe not.
10th and Leavenworth?
We'll
maybe.
We'll see. But it's a Google a long time to either get the street view,
yes,
the street view option, and for everybody. I mean, all those cars and vans have been driving around the country for a couple of years now to try to get everything. So I don't know to the extent of how much of that type of information, data, and imagery that Apple will have with the new system, but it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think most users won't know the difference. They won't really care. It doesn't really matter to them as long as they're getting accurate directions and strong mapping and a satellite view. They're not going to care. But it is interesting. It's a pretty fundamental change in how they're at least handling that data.
And we'll potentially have another big competitor in the map spectrum.
Exactly. Which, hey, competition can be good.
Well, I think that's about all the time we have. So.
Yep. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.